So how does the collapse of a Ukrainian deal affect markets and the economy? Joining us now is E.J. Antoni, Heritage Foundation economist and Unleash Prosperity Senior Fellow, and Grover Norquist, founder and president of Americans for Tax Reform. Remember, we still have a tax bill pending here. Gentlemen, good to see you both. EJ, let me go to you first. I found it fascinating to watch the markets when all this was transpiring today. At first, they went down. They lost a big lead that they had, not huge lead, but the Dow was up about 200, came down, they were in negative territory for a while, and look at where they ended. Can we put up the day's ending here? Look at that jump. When they finally digested what had happened and the way that the president came out looking a lot stronger than he did before it went in, we had this extraordinary rise in the S&P, and the NASDAQ was up percentage-wise even more. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that the adults are back in charge, as somebody once said. You know, what we finally have is a leader who's willing to put America first, and American tax dollars first, and the American economy first, and American workers first, whether that's a factory worker or a dairy farmer, whatever the case may be. You know, it doesn't matter if you're looking at how the president negotiates tariffs or how the president negotiates geopolitical situations like what's going on in the Ukraine. It is all about America first, and American companies, I think, stand to benefit from that.
But Grover, this week, we woke up one morning when it looked like the House wasn't going to have enough votes. It looked like there were 4 Republicans against it, which wasn't enough to pass it. The president got on the phone, personally speaking to these people. Who knows what kind of threats were made under his breath. Maybe he didn't even have to make threats, but he got it done. The bill passed. It wasn't, again, it was far from being a complete bill. We need very clear definition on tax extensions, getting those extra tax relief that he wants for overtime pay, et cetera. But this, I think what happened today strengthened his hands in all kinds of negotiations, including economic ones, don't you?
Yes, I had lunch with the speaker the day that they almost didn't get it passed. They were down 4 votes. The president did play a key role all the way through that, while giving the House and the Senate a lot of running room in getting it done. The biggest decision we have, are we going to stop the $5 trillion tax increase that happens if we don't do reconciliation and continue the Republican tax cuts? That got in a much stronger position with the win the other day. And I think, as your point is today, it's clear that when the president moves on these issues, he will get a significant pro-growth tax policy, and we're not going to get the $5 trillion tax increase that every single Democrat supports.
EJ, there are other economic negotiations the president's involved with, including tariffs involving other nations that we trade with. And we actually saw Donald Trump being lobbied today by the UK Prime Minister. And while the Prime Minister was in the room, Donald Trump was asked a question about tariffs. Let me just play that exchange and get your reaction. Roll it.
Mr. President, did our Prime Minister persuade you not to put tariffs on the UK?
He tried. He was working hard, I'll tell you that. He earned whatever the hell they pay him over there. But he tried. I think there's a very good chance that in the case of these 2 great friendly countries, I think we could very well end up with a real trade deal where the tariffs wouldn't be necessary. We'll see. But he earned whatever they pay him here and today. He was working hard at lunch, and I'm very receptive to it.
So, EJ, I would think that after today, and that was yesterday, of course, after today, it's going to be a lot easier for the president to negotiate some deals that might, frankly, be good for everybody. I mean, they are reciprocal tariffs. If other countries put their tariffs down, we will put our tariffs down to the level that they are. So does what happened today affect those tariff negotiations?
Oh, absolutely, David. I think you're spot on there. All of these issues are interconnected, and when the president shows strength in one area, I think it bleeds over into a lot of other areas too. So as we see the president really being able to wield the American consumer's purchasing power like a weapon in this new tactic of negotiation, I think we're going to continue to see the president win better deals for the American people. And I think your point on reciprocity is absolutely spot on, because when the president talks about, for example, a 25% tariff on a country like Canada, he's not pulling that out of thin air. If you look at the tariffs that Canada already places on us, whether it's dairy products or car parts, if you look at the non-tariff barriers, so think of things like quotas, that averages out to around the ballpark of 25%. So what the president is really threatening, whether it's Canada, the UK, Germany, you name it, is that, look, if you're not willing to give us a level playing field, we're not going to give that to you.
Quickly, Grover, there's another party that's part of the negotiations. That's the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, which continues to come out with this canard that tax extensions are going to cost $4.5 trillion, even though they've made $1.5 trillion since 2017. Can the president take the CBO on?
Well, it's not just the president. The House and the Senate are tired of CBO getting it wrong consistently, not understanding that lower marginal tax rates actually spur economic growth. And there's been the suggestion, I've been in the room when people talked about it, they say, why don't we invite the Heritage Foundation and Brookings and Mercatus and some other groups to put their projections out next to CBO's. And you know what? As we move forward, if CBO isn't in the ballpark, maybe we don't need CBO in the future.
And actually, that's competition. That's why competition works.
Yes.
Because one person, one monopolist doesn't have the say over what happens, particularly if they're wrong time after time after time, which the CBO is, particularly on this point. Gentlemen, great to see you. E.J. Grover, have a great weekend. Appreciate you coming on.